Hello, so a lot of people have made videos on this, but what do I, Meoni, want to see in the future iterations of Final Fantasy XIV as a game? I thought long and hard about this and actually came up with a short-term list as well as a long-term list. This is actually the short-term list, and this includes things that I would like changed or altered in some way before the next expansion. So let's talk about this short term. By short term, I again refer to up to and including the end of this expansion, just to clarify that. So number 5 on this list is dungeon variety. This is something that Stormblood gave us in spades. Both visually and mechanically, a lot of Stormblood's dungeons that were unique additions, and not just hard modes of older content, added either a new spin on a mechanic or an entirely new set to think about. When I think of this point, variety is what interests me the most about the 4-man content specifically. New monster models and different coloured landscapes, such as the dark, moody contrast of Siren Song Sea to the bright blue underwater Shisui of the Violet Tides, from a flooding Doma castle in Crisis to a dry and blood-stained Alamigo during the reclamation of the city. More of this would be welcome, and the better the variety, the better the instance. Number 4, this is PvP, just PvP in general. This is actually on my list for short term, but honestly I was going to put this on long term goals. But I think that if we only want PvP changes in the next expansion, that kind of defeats the point that Square Enix is trying to make with their constant updates to the Feast and various other PvP iterations. They talk about creating the Feast into this glorious esport, with the upcoming FanFest tournament events being pretty crucial to that later this year. I'd like PvP to be meaningful and enjoyable. If we're going to be asked to do it for hairstyles or minions, it has to have something to grab my attention. Putting the Astragalus gorilla behind 100 Winds sounds great, but trying to find a group for that can take the better part of a day or more. The incentives to do PvP are turning into unobtainable elements, which a lot of people are actually a little sour about. Anyone who replies to that and says this is deliberately behind a grind and they stand by this clearly hasn't done Rival Wings lately or attempted to. Keeping this content interesting and, actually getting people to do it is kind of important. People are actively trying to create pre-mades through Reddit events and the like, but as a whole I feel that PvP in general feels rather underwhelming and perhaps much harder to get into than it needs to be. Incentivize as much of it as you want, but as much as people will disagree with me, let's see if we can fix some of the balancing issues that put a lot of people off from even queuing and get the modes in full circulation. A proper duty roulette would be most welcome. Number 3 on my list of short-term changes or additions has to be the gear display. When this new skirt came out for crafting with the ruffled dress, this full set, it irritated the hell out of me that we cannot even view the item unless we wear an item that does not cover the waist of your character in the slightest. This limits your character to wearing bras or summerwear items like the Fair Joy, which, this is fine, but for it to suddenly disappear with no reason as to why when you try to put something slightly longer on, with no clipping issues even imaginable from some of the choices we could make, it has to be on this list for things I would like changed, or changed to future glamour added in the game within this expansion. Stop adding things that just don't work, or just don't visibly show up if I have a slightly longer shirt than you require. Number 2 on this list is job identity, and this is a big one. Jobs have very different strengths and weaknesses that a lot of other people on forum threads and Reddit posts have analysed in great detail, but maintaining job identity in this game is pretty key in my opinion. I personally think that to add the same abilities to every job wouldn't help the game. PvE balancing is very different from PvP. In PvP you want the other player you face to have the exact same chance to defeat you, so it actually comes down to skill and execution of abilities. In PvE you want some of that skill to play a large role, but also it's important to keep jobs apart with different playstyles and roles, even to the point of being able to switch those roles around depending on the fight. A lot of people are talking about the role actions change in patch 4.4 that's upcoming that will make it so that you have all role actions unlocked and no choice will be needed to switch them around. This change specifically is temporary from what we've read, and they're working on a future solution, probably closer to 5.0. This is all good and well, and you can argue that this is a very minor change and a lot of the role actions are bad on certain roles, etc. But you cannot deny that this being changed in 4.4 and not simply saved for 5.0 where it can make the best choices possible is unusual and slightly short-sighted. You may disagree with this and love the change, and that's fine, but if this moves into job abilities and changes down the line that alter the way you play those roles, such as people asking for resurrection on a black mage in exchange for their potency, which has recently been talked about, then I think we need to reevaluate what makes that job unique. Homogenization in PvE is not always the best solution, and there's lots of MMOs that have done it and have failed. And finally, my number one short-term change I would like to see personally is something to do with the Adventurer Squadron, be that running old raids with them for glamour, which is likely very far off and not short-term at all, or some other evolution of that technology. The AI within Squadron missions is a massive work in progress for the dev team, and I appreciate every iteration of it where it makes steps forward. The recent dungeons you can do with your Adventurer Squadron added in 4.3 were not exactly the best and had significant bugs that I complained about before, but there is so much potential for this AI technology that I would love to see them put more time into it. I'm really looking forward to any new way I can use my customized glamoured personal army, perhaps in scenarios or events unique to them, or even the ability to do old trials would be interesting. Think of this as Stone Sky Sea, but you actually get to try the fight out with AI and you see the monster. That way you're not ruining anyone's day by learning phases or mechanics, and obviously you can step into the real version for the actual rewards. I put this on the top of my list as it's a risky, adventurous step forward to the unknown that I absolutely love Final Fantasy XIV for actually attempting. You can't say that with the various twists and unveils in both storyline mechanics and fights we encounter in this game that you can be bored by any of the more recent iterations in both technology and execution. Either way, that is my list of what I personally, in my opinion, would like to see changed or added in short term before 5.0. Some of them stretch into long term slightly, but it would be nice to see some positive directions for each of these points. I'm sure you have your own list of points, so please go ahead and list them in the comment section below. There are no right or wrong answers in this, and I would ask you to respect each other accordingly. I might do something with your comments if they're common occurrences and a general consensus is a particular set of points that we can all agree on. I might do a video on that for your choices, but until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.